Hey, good evening, everybody. Hope everybody is well tonight. Paul here, and I'll be your DM for a while. No Mayhem recap tonight because, well, it was the holidays over the weekend, and so no games were played. So I said, well, why not go ahead and turn this into a Q&A? And I just have a couple of questions tonight, unless you have some questions, which I'd be happy to answer. So if you have questions tonight, be happy to take those. You just leave those in the comments or in the chat, and won't take up too much of your Monday night. But I do have a couple of questions that I will answer for tonight, and hopefully they will be helpful to you. The first question for tonight is a character wishing for feats or another level too much? And I think that's a great question, because when you're dealing with wishes, and if you're a new DM, it can be hard to corral your new players, maybe, or your veteran players looking to take advantage of you, to decide, well, what am I going to do with this wish? And I think you have to decide at the beginning how wishes will work as far as your game goes. And I think if you're going to have a wish, whether it's a wish spell, a wish ring, however that wish is coming about, and I would talk with the players too about how they would want to use this wish. Once they get the wish, once it's a thing, work with them, the players, and say, okay, let me tell you, and don't be afraid to say, hey, in this world, or at least in these mechanics, there are some limits to what your character can wish for, in the sense of you can't do immortality. You can't wish for all the money in the world. So there are limits to a wish for the character, and depending on how you want to frame that, there's a couple of ways you can go about it. The first one, like I said, is talk with your players about what your boundaries are. And I'm not talking about nerfing it, and I'm not talking about taking it away. I don't want to take any agency away from a player as to what their character can wish for. But I would just remind players that whatever you're wishing for, it can be game breaking, or it could be bad for the rest of the party. It could be any of those things. And so don't be afraid to have an opinion or to have a standard by which wishes operate within your game. I have not had a lot of experience necessarily with wishes in my games. It just hasn't come up. But I know already that in my heart of hearts, I would say, okay, there's a couple ways that I would do it. If I'm dealing with players with a little experience, I would say, and it depends how snarky they are, because if they wish for something, I'm going to be very conscious of the words they use. And once again, I'm not trying to nerf their wish. I'm not trying to do those things. I'm just trying to depend on how they are playing their character. And, I'm going to be very conscious of what they say. And so I'm going to listen to how they make their wish, and then try to fulfill that wish based on their own words. And if they wish, for something so outrageous, then I'm going to have to figure that out. Hopefully, I will have had that conversation. If I know there's a wish, let's put it this way, I'm not going to randomly roll up a wish. If a wish is in the game, I've either put it there because there's a genie, or they find a ring, or whatever it is. I'm not going to randomly roll up that. It's not going to be on the list, because it's just going to be too much. So the deal then is, okay, work with your players. I'm going to go ahead and be careful of, listening to what they're wishing for. But when it comes to the mechanics, and if they're wishing for feats or another level, I'm not against a feat, because they can wish for a talent or an ability say I would like to be, if they say, I would like to strike twice with my weapon. Well, then I would say, I would give them something then, if they're specific that way, then I would say, well, go ahead and whoever the wish or the genie or whoever it may be will simply give them could give them a weapon that strikes really fast, or it can give them a glove maybe of dexterity that will increase their dexterity, that would cause them to go ahead and swing their sword faster and give them that ability. So I don't think asking for a feat is the worst thing. I think there's far worse things that a player can wish for, that would break the game or break your campaign. So I would keep in mind that if they want to do something like that, then work with them, work with your players, and see what you can come up with. As far as levels go, you may say, they may wish for another level. They say, I'd like to be level 20, or I'd like to be level. And really, in that sense, if you said, now here's how I would do this. This is me being, a bit, mean, if you want to call it. So, look, I want to be level 20. Okay. Well, I would age their character by about 50 years or something ridiculous. The time that it would take for them to reach a certain level. And you say, Paul, that's crappy. Why would you do that? Well, once again, it just sort of depends what if they're looking to break things, then I'm going to break back. Okay. So I might say, okay, your character's now 75 years old and you're level 20, but you're 75 and you have certain things that have happened to your character that now you don't have certain, your dexterity's gone down, or your stamina's gone down, or your constitution's gone down, but you are in fact level 20. Now, once again, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying that's one approach that I would take to it. The other is, if they wish for level 20, I would maybe work with them to say, okay, you can advance. That there's something about the magic, or the ley lines of magic, or how magic works in the world, and say, you can't achieve this, that the dynamics of how magic works in this world will not allow you to go beyond a certain level. So if you said, well, you want to advance one level, then you say, well, hey, I want to be, if they're level 9, I say, I'll be level 10. Okay. Then maybe you put them, and you look at maybe their experience points. How far are they away from that next experience? So I would like to be level 10. Okay. Maybe there's an encounter that happens that offers that type of experience that gets them to level 10 in that game session. Or maybe it's a matter of tutoring or training or something like that would get them to another level in their experience. Maybe it's, like I said, maybe it's some sort of speed round, or something that involves them doing something really fast. And once again, it could be, if they're very low level and that happens, then the experience points, you can work with that by giving them additional encounters to be able to achieve, versus saying that you can just automatically do something, that the way Wish works in your world. And so I think it's a matter of just saying, hey, here's how Wish works in my world, in the world that's here. And yes, they're going to maybe look at the rules, and you have to look at the rules for Wish and establish all the boundaries and all the things that you have to do for that, and then come to an agreement. So it's not meant, and I don't mean to be combative either. I think that's a bad take. I would not do that to, especially I wouldn't do that to, if I was working. I mean, if Wish spells in my game, it's probably with a bunch of my friends that I know really well, and so I would harass them. I would probably give them a hard time. If you're talking about new players or a one shot at a convention or things like that, I'm not there to bust their balls, really. So I'm not there to make them have a terrible time or anything like that. So I think it's just a matter of establishing what wish does in your world, and be careful how you use it. That's all I can say is especially if you're a new DM, be careful that if you see that there's wish in your game somewhere, there's a ring or genie or something like that, just be careful how you use it, and that way you won't get yourself in trouble, and you won't have to put yourself in a position where you have to make that kind of call. So, but that's question number 1. And once again, if you're joining tonight and you have a question for me, happy to answer it. Let's see, we'll go to question number 2 here. How do you give loot? Now, I'm going to put a link down below. Sly Flourish, who does a lot of content creation in his podcast and his videos on YouTube. I'll put a link down because he did this is a separate question from that, and I just saw his video today. He does a really good job of approaching and looks at many different points, and I don't want to copy that. I'll give you my take on how I handle loot with new players and how I structure it to where I don't give them too much, too little, those type of things. First of all, I run pretty standard adventures, so whatever the treasure is for that adventure, it's already written. And so I'm saying, okay, that's what the adventure says I can give. That doesn't mean that's all I give. That just means that's pretty much the standard that they give you in the adventure. And I go, okay, you found 100 gold pieces and a gem and a piece of art and things like that. What I also try to do is, I think there are several ways you can look at this. And I took a few notes. Here, if I can find out where I did with my. See what I did with my notes. They're around here somewhere. Where the bottom line is that if you're doing loot, you don't want to give them too much too soon, but loot is an important part of the game. I mean, they're playing so that at the end of that game they are going to feel fulfilled. They're going to feel like that the journey was worth it, or the battle was worth it. I mean, because if they're walking away with a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and they feel like they just didn't, it's got to be of value. You got to make it worthwhile, depending how many players you have, and what level they are, and those kinds of things. So let me give you a few things that I think are important. Number 1 is, I think you have to know your players and know their characters, and ask them. And I think this is under session 0 type stuff, where you would say, wishes and stars, for your character. What is your character's wish? Or what does your character really want? Or what is your character really striving for? Because each character, or each player's character, may have a different view of what treasure is. And sure, yes, it's going to include gold, or it includes, trinkets and things like that. But I think when you ask the question, what does your character want? They may say something of, they may want to collect, because I've had characters say they really love cheese. Well, to them, if they found a stash of cheese, a cheese room in a dungeon, that might be like great treasure for them. It's not great for everybody, but you're honing in on what that person's character values as treasure. They may not like gold. They may not like all those things, but they may like cheese. And you may throw in there that there's a wheel of, Gouda that maybe has some sort of magical property. Maybe this is magic cheese. Maybe it's healing cheese. You could take this cheese and do just about anything with it, but you're putting it in a format that is complementary to the character. And so when you're working with, your session 0 about what kind of treasure everybody would like, then I would say, go ahead and just say, okay, put down for your character, based on their background, if they grew up in an impoverished background, maybe then gold is really something. They're to have that gold, to have that stuff. Or maybe if they're a fighter, and they really value weapons, or they are a wizard and they really value old spell books and they're collecting those. So I think it's a matter of just working along with your players to decide what these characters like, what their wishes are, what their long-term maybe desires are that they will eventually achieve, and take notes, because you may not give them the thing that they want right now, but 5 levels later, you may say, well, that's something that I'm going to put in there because I took a note on their character and says, hey, I'm going to make sure that they get that at that level. And I've done similar things like that for special swords or things of that nature that I put in my memory bank, or I took a note about and said, they're really going to want that. Or they really want something that, a treasure maybe that is a family heirloom. Something like that you can throw in there. So work with your players. So that's number one as far as loot goes. I think loot also can be, yes, you're going to have your hoard or whatever you may find as a treasure. But I also look at things like crafting, the ability to craft something. You could craft your own loot. Maybe the characters find enough supplies where you're not giving them the thing, but you're giving them the ingredients maybe to craft their own magic item or their own weapon. And you're leading them and saying, hey, you notice because you're a weaponsmith, that if you were to you're looking at all the things and your character recognizes that you have all the elements here to make an adamantine sword, or you have all the things here to create something, that maybe it's not about giving it directly to them and saying, here's the sword. Maybe you're giving them an opportunity to craft their own weapon, which I think adds value to the character. It adds value to the character's backstory, or to what that character wants to do. And so I think crafting becomes a great opportunity to say, well, you can maybe there's all the elements you're here to make your own spell, or to make your own armor, or whatever it may be. But work with your players on things like crafting. Do they have a crafting ability? If they don't, say, okay, maybe you can develop that. Another thing they can do is maybe their reward happens during downtime. Maybe they meet that the reward they get is training, special training from a high-level mage. Maybe the training they get is from somebody who really knows they're an experienced warrior. Maybe they're an experienced builder and they know how to build things. Whatever that is, find that next level to say that the treasure isn't always stuff in hand, but the stuff that will level up their character, that will increase or expand the character's horizons, something they can learn or do that would add value to their adventure. Now, it doesn't mean I don't give them, jewels or gold or things that they can spend. I'm just saying that things like crafting or things they can do in their downtime can also be treasure, in the sense that it's in addition to, not instead of, the gold or the jewels or the art or whatever they may find. These are just other opportunities, I think, that is better than just putting it in their hand, but you're giving them other opportunities as well. And then I think you also have to decide, is it random or is it planned? Now, I've done some random things where I'll say, you found this item. And something I like to use is maze rats. Maze rats, it's kind of its own game. It's from Ben, I think, over at Questing Beasts made this. And you can see here, there's treasure items. So right here, you can see treasure items. And so there's all these kinds of things here. And you just roll 2d6, or you roll 1d6, and then you have which column you're in. So if you roll a 1d6 and I roll let's say I roll a 1 here, right? And then I roll another 6 because there's 6 items there. Maybe I find a calligraphy. So, okay, a calligraphy. So I find some sort of calligraphy item. Well, what does that calligraphy item do? And then I could go over to, let's say I went over to magic. I think there's a magic session here. So let's say I went to physical effects. So let's say if I go to physical effects and I roll the dice there, and maybe it's levitating. So maybe then I say, okay, this is a calligraphy set that once a day you could write a levitation spell. But so you got to write the levitation spell, and then you go through a process and so forth to then, be able to use it, and then you can use that levitation spell. So I think if you're going to do random, make it fun. Make it something that's going to be like, okay, here's a random item that you can give to somebody, but it's also going to be unique, and it doesn't have to be a standard form. And once again, you can use, the Dungeon Master's Guide has its lists, plenty of lists out there that you can generate magic items from. But once again, it's a difference between random and planned. If you're going to plan and say this encounter is going to be so much of this, you can pre-roll all this. You can take this and pre-roll all your stuff and put all that unique, fun stuff that's going to be in there, and be able to. You already know in advance. You don't have to spend the time at the table to do that. But then you can use, like I said, a random table to say, okay, here's all the stuff that's in there. One thing that does that is, and I've been reading a little bit about it. I have yet to play it or run it, although I say I've played it one time, but I've not run 4th edition. And so when you have 4th edition here, and in 4th edition on page 125, it talks about awarding treasure. So if you'll allow me just a second, I'll go ahead and read just a little bit of it, and then show you the what is called the parcels. And they give you these little parcels of what you can use to, a standard parcel of treasure items. So on awarding treasure, it says, while experience points are fundamentally an encounter-based or quest reward, treasure is a larger scale reward doled out over the course of an adventure. You plan treasure in terms of the 8 to 10 encounters it takes characters to advance from one level to the next. During the course of gaining that level, expect a group of 5 characters to acquire 4 magic items, ranging in levels from 1 to 4 levels above the party level. In addition, they should find gold and other monetary treasure equal to the market price of 2 magic items of their level. So a 6th level party would find 4 magic items, 1 each of level 7 through 10, and gold worth 2 6th level items or 3,600 gold pieces. So it gives you a standard for looking at that. Now, on the following pages, it gives you this whole package of these treasure parcels based on level. So if you're looking at party level 1, heroic tier, it says that you're going to find, during this time, you're going to find total monetary treasure of 720 gold pieces. And then you're going to find some of these other pieces within that parcel, which could be 120 gold pieces or 100 gold piece gem, magic item level 5. And I believe in the player's handbook, the magic items have level numbers, so you know at what level you may want to hand that out to a player. You may find a magic item level 4, level 3, level 2, so forth, and then it gives you other options there. So if you wanted to put together a parcel, if you will, of saying here's some pretty standard things that would be fun for this particular level, you could always use that. I believe that's page 126 in the 4th edition Dungeon Master Guide. And they come up with those things, but you can come up with your own as well. I mean, you can say, hey, I think, looking at that and say, okay, that seems like something reasonable there, that we can do that. And I'll be honest with you, like I said, I play standard adventures, and so I give what's given. So I let somebody do the work for me because, unless I am thinking in unique terms of the special characters, those things. But as far as the gold, to be honest with you, I'm shopping trips and like, when are they going to spend it? And, very little, at least the parties that I've worked with, and a lot of them have been one shots. There's not a lot of them that go on a lot of shopping trips. there's one group that I have that has gone on maybe one or two shopping trips, and they've gone in, and I've worked with them, and they bought. This was an adventure I taught. Was teaching new players, and the player went into a magic shop, and I said, what do you want to buy? And the shopkeeper said, well, I have, this big, giant, not giant, but this piece of rock, this round rock. And, I think I rolled it up on the maze rats. And when I rolled it up, it became it actually, if you tossed it, it turned into a statue, an obelisk. It turned into an obelisk, and hilarity ensued after that. But that's something just like a fun, quick, rolled up thing that player had a lot of fun with just for learning. And so I think I'm not too worried about things like that, because then the player has to get, it's not like a wand or a ring or something that has very specific things. I think it's okay for players to be able to figure out how they're going to use a magic item, how their character is going to use this magic item. You want to make it valuable. You want to make it something that's going to be fun. And of course, as they go in the more epic that it goes, and you want more epic weapons. You want more epic things that they find. Long lost treasures that maybe whatever, universe you're playing in, there are things that they're going to find. Maybe they find one of the rods of 7 parts. Maybe they find, some sword out there that belonged to, Dris Duard. Who knows, right? I mean, not that Dris Duard would lose his sword at all. Neither he would not lose his swords. But you know what I'm saying. They find some sword that winds up being lost, and maybe somebody's looking for it. You never know. So I would say then the last thing, after you decide whether it's going to be random, if you're going to be random, use something, like this to roll it up. Or if you're going to plan it, plan a package of stuff. If it's a homebrew, especially. If you're playing an adventure that's already planned, then they've already done the homework for you and said, okay, if you're doing a homebrew, then you may want to put together something like that. And then the last question I have here is, how do I help new players understand they have options in a fight, such as running away or negotiating? And I, as a professional DM, I make sure that that is one of the first things that I tell new players, because I think new players don't understand that these hit points that you have are few, and they can go away. They go away very quickly because they don't know how much damage things do. They don't know how much they're going to get hit and so forth. So I tell them, I say, look, running away is always an option. I just tell them just straight up at the beginning, because then they can decide whether or not they're going to be heroic, or they're going to run into battle, or whatever they're going to do. I also try to gauge. So, example, if a party wants to fight a creature that is far above, that it could mean imminent death for them, I might have that creature, they may witness that creature do something that would warn them, of their level, that would make players rethink their strategy. So maybe it's a fight that they see. Maybe they see it grab. Maybe maybe when they go in, they see this monster or this creature or this beast already fighting. And when they see this creature handily win by, tearing its head off or whatever it does, they're going, oh, that's pretty powerful. And they look at each other and go, we should rethink this. We should rethink going into this. And I think letting players know in using story to do that, using story to be able to help them see and visualize that they may be punching, above their weight class, they go, well, okay, well, let's rethink that. Let's rethink that this is not going to work out quite the way I think. And I think letting your players know that they have these options of negotiation, that maybe there's a rumor. It's okay to put a rumor in there and say, hey, there's a rumor that this giant will negotiate or will or be willing to trade. And so maybe they have to find something that a giant would want that they're willing to trade for. So I think there's multiple ways of being able to help players understand that they don't have to fight everything, that they can gauge what they're going to do, whether it's fighting or negotiating or running away. I think you can tie it to the story, and then without being super instructive, without constantly saying, I always tell players, I say, look, if you hear me say, you sure you want to do that? That might be a clue. Listen for the inflection in my voice. That might be a clue as well. That would tip them off that says, this might not work out quite the way you want. Now, once again, I'm not trying to tell them what to do, nor am I trying to railroad them. Once I've given them the instruction at the beginning that it's okay to run away, I may give them a little tip, but if they decide they are just bent on doing the thing that they want to do, I'm going to let them do it. If they've ignored everything and nobody is negotiating and nobody's talking to one another about, hey, maybe we should rethink that. If they're all gung-ho, I say, okay, let's go. And then I let them go ahead and do that. So yeah, those are my tips for tonight. I hope that you guys enjoyed me answering the questions. If you have questions in the future, would love to hear from you. You can leave them down below. If you have any questions about any things that I talked about tonight, well, then you're welcome to share them as well down in the comments. I will let you know that this Thursday, I am running a Pathfinder game at, I believe, 6:30 Central Standard Time over on Roll20. And we'll be using Discord. So if you're interested in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you're going to learn how to play, this would be a great opportunity. It is a paid game, and it's called Dinner at Lion Lodge. And it is I'll call it a mystery in some ways. But you will learn, there'll be some swinging, some fighting, some discovering, some exploring. All the things will be there, and some treasure and some loot. You won't go away empty-handed, I promise. So feel free to check out the link down below. That will take you to the game there. Once again, it's only, I think I have 4 slots, maybe 5. 4 or 5 slots, so if, it'll go very quickly. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out below. But anyway, thank you guys for joining me. Appreciate you hanging out for a while. Be sure that if you're not a subscriber here today, thank you for checking out. Appreciate you hanging out for a while. And be sure to go and click that subscribe button, and you'll get videos like this on a regular basis. And also, if you really, really, really like the video, go ahead and click that thumbs up button. That tells me you like the video and you would like more of them. So, but that is it for tonight, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. We'll see you guys later.